EABC is the European Chamber of Commerce in Thailand since 2011. It brings together more than 120 members of 20 nationalities. As the unified voice of all European business in Thailand, it advocates member interests, supports European business in Thailand, promotes Thailand as an attractive partner for European foreign investment and trade. The European Business Position Paper is EABC's main publication. It is the unified work of 12 working groups contributing to the improvement of European-Thai economic relations, trade and investment, and better business in Thailand. It covers the whole economy and provides important recommendations to strengthen Thailand's competitiveness and support Thailand as a trading partner and investment destination. It has become a highly respected go-to resource and a reference for top officials and top managers. We are proud to introduce you to the 2022 European Business Position Paper, which covers introduction about the Thai economy and key aspects, automotive, cross-sectorial issues, digital economy and ICT, energy, food and beverages, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, industry, insurance, intellectual property rights, rail and road infrastructures, SMEs, tourism, and transport and logistics. The digital edition of the 2022 European Business Position Paper is now available for no charge on EABC's website. To experience the publication and download it, or for more information on our advocacy activities and membership packages, please visit www.eabc-thailand.org.
I'm pleased and honored to welcome you all today to the digital launch of our 2022 European Business Position Paper. This reference publication is the product of our deep engagement with the European business community in Thailand and of our interaction with the governments of Thailand and European institutions. It covers the whole economy with deeper focus on most sectors and provides important recommendations under the theme supporting sustainable economic recovery and competitiveness in Thailand. The launch is of two formats, a hard copy and a searchable PDF, which will be available to download on our websites at the beginning of next week. So first, I would like to thank all our sponsors who made this event possible. Our Premium and Premium Plus partners for their continuous support, Multicore International Group, BioThai, Diageo Moet NC, United Overseas Bank, International Workplace Group Vegas. I also thank the companies who have specifically sponsored this event and the digital launch and edition of our 2022 position paper. Our platinum sponsors, Spica Escana, Danone Specialized Nutrition Thailand, Dextra Asia, our gold sponsors, Low Plus, and finally, I also want to thank our silver crowdfunders, Danieli, Aviation Pro, and ISM Technology. Without further ado, I am pleased to ask our president, Mr. Jan Eriksson, to welcome us all. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, senior government officials, members of the European business community, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the digital launch event for the 2022 European Business Position Paper, the seventh such paper that EABC has produced. We are most grateful to their Excellencies, Mr. Arkhom Termpittayapaisit, Minister of Finance, and Mr. David Daly, Ambassador of the European Union to Thailand, for gracing this event. We also pay special recognition to the ambassadors of the European member states, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Hungary, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the Slovak Republic, as well as Thai and foreign government officials. The 2022 European Business Position Paper is a group effort of 12 specialized teams which have researched, tested, and built consensus around the recommendations. Then, in various ways, through dialogue, conferences, seminars, written proposals, and other means, have engaged on the proposals. It offers a pan-economy perspective. Since the previous paper in late 2019, the world has been consumed by the challenge of the pandemic, which have changed our life, our economies, and alter the future, and sometimes in a permanent way. To some extent, while we have been focused on survival, long-term strategies for competitiveness, productivity, and sustainability have not always been the center. But we need this more than ever now. We commend the Royal Thai government for its effort in promoting trade and investment through aiming to enhance competitiveness, improve ease of doing business, supporting the rule of law, and to integrate sustainability in all its activities. More is needed. One concern is that Thailand has continued to slide in the corruption perception index, showing a widening gap with the neighbor countries such as Indonesia and Vietnam, for example. All this is an ongoing journey and shared responsibility which has to be worked on. The European Business Position Paper contained detailed recommendations in this respect. European business at its best offers quality, integrity, and understanding based on several comprehensive policies with leading thinking, which, when combined with local experience, can produce compelling solutions. EABC seeks to capture and infuse these benefits via the process into how we do business together with our Thai partners. In today's environment, where there is intense competition for skills and capital, investor looks for advantages beyond investment incentives to ensure that their business are competitive and profitable in the longer term and can be used as highly effective regional basis as needed. Ongoing reform to support ease of doing business continue to be essential. We urge the Thai government to address a number of areas, streamlining the regulatory framework for increased ease of doing business to strengthening the Thai economy. The position paper reflects 4 key policy themes for Thailand. 1, economic recovery, border opening, upskilled and greener. 2, market access, in particular service sector liberalization, which gives a better entree for the European business and the European policies such as sustainability and responsible business conduct. 3, ease of doing business, less red tape, make the economy more attractive, reduce cost, and increase GDP. Sounds easy, but it's a big task. 4, a meaningful Thai-EU FTA for mutual benefit will also help to build the economy. All this sharpens the need for effective engagement with the business community. We believe that European business offers quality of effort and approach based on rule of law and the rule-based world trading order. I would like to record my thanks to all who have worked on today's event and to EABC's partners, sponsors for their valued contribution. Thank you again to all of you attending, and I wish you all a good event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eriksson, for your insights into what EABC offers and how it contributes to carry the united voice of all European business in Thailand. It is now my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Mr. Arkhom Termpittayapaisit, Minister of Finance, for his keynote address. Thank you.
His Excellency David Daly, Ambassador of the European Union to Thailand, Excellencies, Ambassadors and Trade Councillors of European countries, President of European Bilateral Chambers, President of European Association for Business and Commerce, Khun Jan Eriksson, Board of Directors, Working Group Chairs, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and very good morning and good to see all of you once again. It is my great pleasure to participate in the launch event of the 2022 European Business Position Paper and to congratulate the European Association for Business and Commerce, or the EABC, for having successfully produced a policy paper under the theme Supporting Sustainable Economic Recovery and Competitiveness in Thailand. Just like the regular meetings which we have had during my tenure as the Finance Minister, I'm certain that the paper would provide a comprehensive set of policy proposals for the development of Thailand. The paper has also come at the right timing as Thailand's looking beyond the COVID-19 pandemic and paving step forwards to future of resilient and sustainable economy. Please rest assured that the government would very carefully take your policy advice into consideration. Specifically on the 2022 European Business Position Paper, which covers 13 issues that I would not be able to cover all, but I will touch upon some of the issues that are mentioned in the policy paper. I believe that many of Thailand's development goals can be achieved through cooperation between the public and the private sectors. With the EABC as a strong partner, and I'm certain that many of such possibilities have been reflected in our previous dialogue. Taking sustainable healthcare financing, for example, we can see the benefits of proposal, and the Ministry of Finance is considering ways to effectively implement it to ensure that the government's healthcare expenditure and thus its fiscal position continues to be healthy and sustainable, while promoting innovations in medicine and patient access to them. As already known to many of you, Thailand will be hosting APEC meetings this year. And among many themes in the dialogues I have had with EABC, two of them, digital economy and sustainable finance, happen to coincide with the deliverables which the Ministry of Finance would like to achieve for hosting the APEC Finance Minister meeting and related meetings. These two themes will also showcase the strength of Thailand. On digital economy, we are in the world's first cross-border remittance linkage between Thailand's PromptPay and Singapore's PayNow. Thailand has also demonstrated during the COVID-19 outbreak that we can use digital tools and utilize the wealth of data to target and provide assistance to people. In APEC 2022, we will share and learn how economies can better take advantage of digital financial services, including how digital tools can improve people's access to government services, how digital payments can facilitate cross-border trade and transfers, and how digital fundraising channels can be used to improve SME access to finance. The Ministry of Finance itself has also undergone digital transformation in its various capacities, including electronic public procurement and electronic tax filing, payment, and refund. We will make sure that such digital transformation continues for both the Ministry of Finance itself and the financial sector as a whole. On the sustainability agenda, We are proud of the sustainability bond that we have issued and listed in the Luxembourg Stock Exchange. This will be a basis for further discussion in APEC 2022 on how financing tools, both in the bond and the stock markets, can induce sustainable projects, which will contribute to Thailand's goal in achieving net zero emissions, consistent with similar policy agendas put forward by countries around the world, including the European Green Deal and Thailand's Bio-Circular Green or BCG economic model. Another point that we have been discussing so often in the past couple of years is how to make doing businesses in Thailand easier and more productive. We recognize your recommendations in custom facilitations and tax reform, with taxes on digital services having recently been implemented and tax incentive on electric vehicles soon to be rolled out early this year. This incentive will make electric cars more affordable and enable the transition from fossil fuel power to electric vehicles. We will continue to take comments from you in these and other areas. The ultimate goal is to make Thailand a country well-rounded and suitable for business operations, travels, and investment for all. As we look into the future, we can see that the world has changed dramatically in recent years. We have seen severe weather events all over the world. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen the world being disrupted and weaned off human connection that we have become so accustomed to. In response to these trends, the world has made climate a key agenda in many international fora, and the world has plugged in and connected virtually, just like how we are connecting to one another in this meeting. We should therefore build on this momentum to make the world cleaner and greener, and to create not only smart cities, but also smart nations. In the process of green and digital transformation, we should also engage small and medium-sized businesses and ensure that the resulting benefits are inclusive. Apart from that, the startup and the venture capital is one of the issues that we are working on it, and the tax incentive will be issued very soon as well. Obviously, in such transformation, the public sector cannot go it alone, but needs cooperation from the private sector. On that front, I'm confident that EABC will play a crucial part in Thailand's pursuit of the BCG economic model and the country's progress and prosperity for years to come. And for that, please allow me to express my gratitude to EABC members and the European business community for contributing to the Thai economy. Finally, from the Ministry of Finance, I would like to convey to you my best wishes for your good health, your success in this launch event, and your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and thank you for your wishes. It is now my pleasure to invite His Excellency, Mr. David Daly, Ambassador to the European Union to Thailand, to share the EU vision with us. Thank you.
Good morning. Your Excellency, Mr. Arkhom Termpittayapaisit, Minister of Finance, Excellencies, EABC board members, distinguished guests from European and Thai businesses, from embassies, from the Thai government, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be invited to share opening remarks on the occasion of the launch of the 2022 position paper of the European Association of Business and Commerce, entitled this year, Supporting Sustainable Economic Recovery and Competitiveness in Thailand. I would like to congratulate the authors of the position paper for pulling together a long series of policy recommendations addressed to the Royal Thai government, with the ultimate objective of contributing to a thriving economy and society, as well as to closer ties between Thailand and the European Union. I wish to touch upon the EU vision, or rather, three related visions. A vision for sustainable recovery, a vision for the FTA, and a vision for the role of European business. A vision for supporting sustainable economic recovery and competitiveness in Thailand. We all know of Thailand's strong commitment internationally on sustainability issues in general. And sustainable economic recovery is one part of that. For many years, Thailand has been the motor within ASEAN, for example, behind the motor behind the EU-ASEAN high-level dialogue on sustainability issues. Indeed, the recent high-level dialogue, only 3 months ago, was co-chaired by Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Don. We also see Thailand making a sustainable post-COVID recovery, a priority for its chairmanship of APEC. The European Union also has a strong sustainability aspect to its recovery package. We are investing heavily in a green recovery. The Minister mentioned the Green Deal, an innovation recovery, and a digital recovery. The greening of the EU economy will have many implications for partner countries around the world. Turning to today's work, the 2022 position paper, from my preliminary take on these policy recommendations, as well as my experience my first 5 months as Ambassador of the EU to Thailand, I note with keen interest the repeated calls from European businesses here for structural economic reforms, which would help Thailand in areas where not all of its growth potential has yet been fully realized. For example, through the opening of services activities, implying a review of the Foreign Business Act. The Minister has just referred also to financial services and their importance. But also through enabling a better and fairer participation of foreign bidders in government procurement, or in terms of making it easier, simpler to do business through some fast-track regulatory reforms, notably through the so-called guillotine process, perhaps an unfortunate term. I would add the need to address in an assertive manner the more general point about anti-competitive practices which hinder open and fair conditions in the Thai marketplace. Such calls from European business are not only pertinent, given the fundamentals of the Thai economy, but they are also very timely, as the Minister has also just mentioned. Timely, as the government is currently designing its post-pandemic recovery strategy. A point I would like to stress is that when European business, or the European Union as such, when European business make these suggestions here in Thailand and the EU, we do so as a reliable and respectful partner to Thailand, and one which speaks out of its own experience. The EU internal market was not born overnight. To create the world's largest and most open integrated market took years of structural economic reforms across 27 different EU countries. The benefits of this are not only there for all to see, but also the benefits are to be shared through the openness of market access which the EU offers, whether through openness to Thai businessmen investing in the EU or to sectors such as the Thai agri-food sector. We know that reform is a difficult journey, that it has certain costs, but we also know that it ultimately leads to a more prosperous, more sustainable, and fairer economy and society. Despite the difficulties, the prize is huge. A vision for the FTA and the related investment protection agreement. We are doing well together. The EU is the 4th largest trading partner of Thailand after China, Japan, and the US. And we are the 3rd largest investor after Japan and Singapore. The EU is also the 3rd largest destination of Thai direct investments abroad. So we can say we are doing well together, but there is still a margin to deepen our bilateral trade and investment relations, notably through a bilateral FTA that is modern, comprehensive, and ambitious. The European Union recognizes Thailand as an important country in an important part of the world. In our recently adopted European Strategy for Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, the EU reiterated its interest in further engaging on trade negotiations with Thailand once the conditions are right. Such a trade and investment deal would bring important mutual benefits in its own right. It would significantly increase the market access gains in terms of tariff liberalization, services, government procurement opening, and the harmonization of standards. It would boost jobs and growth on both sides, while at the same time reinforcing sustainability in its environmental, climate, labor, and human rights dimensions. As a result, it would strengthen the competitive position of Thailand regionally and globally. In the ASEAN context, the FTA would be another milestone on the road towards a region-to-region EU FTA, thus attracting even more EU businesses to the region. Countries such as Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, and very soon, we hope, Malaysia, are showing the way. And I want to see Thailand join this list. In parallel to an FTA, an investment protection agreement will ensure a high level of protection for Thai foreign direct investment across the European Union. In Thailand, such a guarantee for protecting EU foreign direct investments will be a key factor in the decision of European investors to further increase their investments or for others to start investing in Thailand. The benefits of an FTA with the EU have been recently assessed in a study commissioned by the Thai Ministry of Commerce. According to the study, the FTA could bring an annual GDP growth increase of almost 1%. The study varies between 0.16% and 0.86%. But all of this is dependent on the degree of liberalization in various sectors, especially in the services sector. In order to get to that point, the EU is conducting hand in hand with the Thai authorities an exploratory exercise for the resumption of FTA negotiations to ascertain that the two sides see eye to eye in terms of the scope and the level of ambition of a bilateral FTA. This implies clear signals from the Thai side about the readiness to engage into the necessary reforms in this regard. Yes, the trade and investment deal would bring these mutual benefits in its own right. But it would also bring deeper economic benefits for Thailand through engaging on the necessary structural reforms. The economic gains of almost an extra 1% of GDP are very, very likely to have been understated because they don't take account of the large economic gains to Thailand, which an opening of government procurement or which a better protection of intellectual property rights would involve. Some of these structural reforms relate, for example, to the opening of services and government procurement, the role of the state-owned enterprises, and the competition framework. They are key to unleashing the potential of the Thai economy and to achieving the Thai government's objective to avoid the middle income trap and to keep its competitive position within ASEAN. If we fast forward 5, 6, 7 years, we would all want that Thailand would be a more open, more investment friendly, greener, and more innovative economy. If that is the vision of the country, and I believe it is the vision of the Thai government, as the minister has just explained, then an ambitious FTA with the European Union would be a good vehicle to help Thailand to get there. A vision for the role of European business. In order to achieve this, all sides have to be on board. The public authorities, as well as the private sector, civil society, all of this in Thailand and in the European Union. On the European business side, this position paper is a proof of your commitment to Thailand and your support to the policies of the government to turn Thailand into a sustainable and high value-based economy driven by sustainability, technology, and innovation. Equally, and let us not forget, there is also European business back in Europe, which wants greater openness and ease of doing business in Thailand so as to increase trade and to also invest and come here. You, as European businesses, are all successful on the highly competitive EU market with its increasingly high standards on blue, green, and sustainability issues. This valuable European business experience should be of great help to Thailand. Talking about sustainability in particular, let us recall that the European Union is the most advanced trading partner of Thailand on this issue. European businesses have a clear comparative advantage in the sustainability field. And this should help you to develop further your business opportunities and presence here in Thailand. It goes well with the policy agenda of the Thai government with its bio-circular green economic model, and the transition towards carbon neutral economies will be only possible if the private sector is fully on board. I strongly believe that European business has the capacity and the readiness to play its role. On the Thai business side, while there is a clear appetite for conducting more business with European companies and to benefit from their know-how and ensure technology transfer, there's nonetheless some resistance as well, notably in the fields of labor protection, in the services sector, or in the agri-food sector. It is natural for there to be different views since greater openness brings greater competition and not everybody is affected equally. Nonetheless, I hope and I am confident that the debate which will be initiated by the position paper today will contribute to addressing such hesitations I ask you, as European businesses here, to be ambassadors for high European standards. In a context dominated by the consideration of reforms and by the prospects for an FTA negotiation, it's crucial to be able to rely on a strong, coherent, coordinated, and effective representation of European Union business in Thailand. The many challenges call on us all to be forward-looking, to focus on the broad picture, to be inclusive, and enhance cooperation. In this way, European business interests will be well served, as well as those of a thriving Thai economy, and very importantly, a mutually beneficial relationship between the EU and Thailand. A hectic trade and investment agenda lies ahead. In conclusion, I look forward to hearing about their various activities from the impressive list of EABC working groups, including from the Table Working Group on the automotive sector. What you have to say is important. I'm confident that the position paper will help us all to reinforce our bilateral relations with Thailand, politically and business-wise, and it will also help us to work together to support Thailand on its path to a dynamic and sustainable recovery. I look forward, together with my colleagues, the family of European Union ambassadors, to continue to work well with you. In particular, I know that the relations with the business community is a particular priority of the French presidency, and this is something which we will work together on here in the course of this year. I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It is now time for us to unveil the contents and the key findings of the new edition of our position paper. So this 2022's edition focus is on supporting sustainable economic recovery and competitiveness in Thailand. It addresses a topic which is on everybody's mind after 2 years of pandemic, and especially it provides clear and feasible recommendations on how to overcome the challenges that the current crisis poses to Thailand and how to limit or resolve its impacts on the economy. An overview will be provided by Mr. Bob Fox, Advocacy Development Group. Then each working group representative will have up to 2 minutes to deliver key messages about their subject matter. As you can see from the position paper, EABC has 12 working groups, each with a strong domain knowledge and experience. EABC very much encourages engagement on these issues. So please contact me or the relevant working group representatives if you're interested in participating in one of our groups. The working groups are represented today by Bob Fox for the introduction, Peter Renkel, Automotive, Nicolas Bellamy, cross-sectoral issues, Bob Fox, digital economy, ICT, David Bexted, energy, Jules Norton-Selzer, food and beverages, Kitimasri Watanako, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, Alessandro Menocchi, industry, Jerome Kelly, insurance, Frank Fougère, intellectual property rights, George Wolf, rail and road infrastructure, Bob Fox, SMEs, Eric Brandt, tourism, and Roderick Hoffman, transport and logistics. So it is now my pleasure to invite Mr. Bob Fox to present the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Your Excellencies, colleagues, and all attendees, it's a great pleasure to be here today. In our introduction, we look at some big picture economic issues. We know that GDP slide in 2020 was minus 6.1%, and the best estimate for 2021 at this stage is about plus 0.75%. We really hope to get into some serious single digits during this year. International tourist arrivals, as we know, were stellar in 2019 at almost 40 million, 6.7 million 2020, and 2021 about 300,000. We hope to get into 3 to 4 million this year. Exports remarkably have held up well. Looking ahead, however, we're going to see a weaker economy with inflation. EABC works with TDRI, World Bank and others to understand these forecasts and the dimensions of them. As all speakers have said, our recovery needs to be greener, upskilled, and sustainable. You have heard the theme of the position paper, and that's what this is all about. It pervades the chapters. We can all remember, looking back some years, at the many longer-term strategic policies such as competitiveness, service sector liberalization, making the Foreign Business Act work, productivity, but these have been crowded out by the immediacy of survival. But we need these things more than ever. We need to look to sustainable recovery, to managing in an endemic. Digitalization is only a partial success. Everybody reads that the pandemic is the best crisis to have to make us all digital. Well, we should have, but we didn't quite. Some opportunities were definitely taken up in the past 2 years. For example, the very elegant solution for digital meetings, which the Thai government brought out. As the Minister for Finance has noted, Revenue Department advances in digital interaction and some Business Development Department filings. Let us not poo-poo the Thailand Pass. It is a great advance in what was. However, there are some areas which did not take the opportunity. We still suffer as the #1 mentioned area in work permit and visa, and the fast-track regulatory reform process, or guillotine, is certainly addressing that. But there is a long way to go before full digital government in Thailand. EABC is very much part of this and engaged. We have developed an advocacy strategy. We understand the issues better and better every day. We build consensus, we gauge and positively influence in the best way we can, backed up by the strength, as the ambassador has said, of the quality of European business and the learnings from the European experience, which are a positive influence in the world today. Advocacy partners are a key to our effective engagement and consensus. Responsible business conduct is an attractive value adder. This chapter also aims to put in context the role of EU law and regulation and show why an FTA is beneficial. The income gap and wealth gap are explained. There's no easy solution to this, but it needs addressing. Education reform is a challenge. The new national education bill may not provide all the answers. We see in the industry, food and beverage, tourism, digital economy, ICT, CSI chapters, how the pandemic has gutted organizational learning at what needs to be done. Thank you. I now hand over to Peter Rankel, Automotive.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob, and welcome everybody. My name is Peter Rankel. I'm the Automotive Working Group Chair here by TIBA, and I want to address 3 topics. One is emissions, second is electric vehicles, and third one is safety topics. Starting with the first one on the emission side, it's now time again for, unfortunately, some air pollution. Everybody can feel it here in Bangkok as well. And from our side, from European automotive side, we are already too long at EU4 emissions. EU5 should now come in 2024. Still not so clear. Means our recommendation is EU5, EU6 vehicles get produced already today here in Thailand. And we propose an introduction as soon as possible, latest 2024. Besides this, an old car management and a car zoning, we would like to propose similar like we have it in many countries in Germany, or in Europe, sorry. Next page, please. It's about electrification. So in regards to electrification, we have Next page, please. So yes, thank you. So by 2035, the Thai government has decided to pull out of combustion engine. Aggressive target, fully supported from the European business side. For our viewpoint, it's very important to have here the right infrastructure, a lot of charging station. We are here to support with our suppliers, with our businesses. And definitely we see here with more direct investments, a lot of opportunities as well for us to contribute to a fast change over to the electrification targets here. For my last page, please, talking about safety, another important item here. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of casualties on Thailand roads, mainly involved two-wheeler applications. And here as well, technology can help with ABS, anti-blockation system, would reduce casualties at two-wheeler sites by around 1/3. We are now starting to produce this locally here in Thailand, starting next year, and it would be very helpful as well to have here an introduction for all two-wheelers mandatory for ABS. Much more in the, let's say, position paper. Thanks a lot, and if you have any question, don't hesitate to contact me. With this, I hand over to Nicolas. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and good morning to you all. The Cross-Sectoral Issues Working Group covers a range of business and strategic enablers. These are presented under 6 clusters designed to bring focus and relevance to our stakeholders. These 6 clusters are shown on the left side of the screen. The first 5 have been refreshed to reflect the current priorities as we see them. The 6th, sustainability, is new in this position paper. We aim to build consensus and believe our recommendations reflect views from the wider foreign and Thai business community. We are, I hope, coming to the end of the first phase of the COVID pandemic. The next phase is business and economic recovery. During this period, Thailand faces fierce competition for both investment and talent. Urgent measures are required to avoid losing out. We therefore suggest to implement measures immediately for 2 to 3 years to support business recovery, innovation, and competitiveness. These include implement a reduced rate of withholding tax and implement administrative recommendations for tax. This can relieve a significant burden on business without reducing the overall tax collection. Suspend List 3 of the Foreign Business Act on services for 2 to 3 years to attract investment and talent. Implement urgent reforms to work permit and visa regulations in respect of skilled workers. Remove the 90-day and other reporting requirements, which are an unnecessary burden and present a negative image. Enhance public and private collaboration on sustainability. And finally, to set up a permanent, fully staffed agency to manage regulatory guillotine. The removal of temporary regulations and restrictions related to COVID-19 should also be a priority. Thank you. Next is digital economy, presented by Bob Fox.
I think the video may not be working. Can you fix that, please? Thank you. Apologies for that delay. The digital economy works in layers, as we can see here. This working group has always been a joint working group with the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand, or JFCCT. We work together, we collaborate. The digital economy is underpinned by a competitive telecom sector. There are more players in each succeeding layer as you go up, fewer at the lower end. Thus, there are dependencies. This kind of structure is also reflected typically in telecoms chapters that you might see in FTAs. For example, it's also in GATS. It works best with effective regulation and fair market conduct. We start with infrastructure, then we move up to operating and support systems, then applications and digital services. Being digital requires all sectors to work on digitalization, which means having digital skills. Next slide, please. So maintaining the same three-layer structure. What are our main issues? In the applications and digital services area, the new advent of platforms is like the new FDI. You can build a platform anywhere in the world and offer services globally. There is a digital platforms governance decree, which is still being debated in Thailand. There are some EU precedents for this and some very useful learning. However, there is some overreach in the draft decree, and commercial presence or mode 3 should not be mandated. A raft of regulations seen in 2021, which appears in the chapter, needs to operate harmoniously. There was an absolute tsunami during 2021 of these things. Operating and support systems and digital governance. Digital literacy and digital capability. We are exploring this with the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, and others. Digital government. Our vision is for a whole of government, interoperable, interconnected system with single sign-on. This requires a process of getting rid of unwanted rules first, re-engineering, and then building the platforms. In terms of infrastructure, we still haven't got to the point of reforming the state-owned enterprise. Two organizations were merged, but that's only the start. We're not seeing real reform where it has to be focused on the core strengths, which are fixed line, backhaul, and backbone, and not on retail mobile, for example. This matter we have discussed with the Ministry of Finance as well as the Ministry of Digital Economy and Society, and we hope for good progress in this area. We urge the ceasing of the foreign dominance notification. There's no need for it. Everyone will be aware from the press of a proposed telecom merger. To be clear, we do not comment on the parties involved or on the deal. For a long time, we have been very interested, however, in the competitiveness of the sector. And we ask, if two operators would have 96% market share, how will this support a competitive sector? We urge all parties involved to come up with a solution. We recognize that spectrum holdings do bring in additional complexity. There are many EU policies and laws that are very relevant: digital single market, the platforms area, digital services market, Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act, connectivity, and of course, data privacy through the GDPR. To illustrate one little point about compatibility, we have worked on digital vaccine certificates and seen the developments of ICAO and WHO. There are regional and local initiatives. It's very pleasing to read compatibility with the EU digital COVID-19 clearance certificate if using a Thailand-based MOPROM app. More to come. Thank you very much. I now hand over to David Beckstead, Energy.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Okay, the key issue confronting the energy sector globally and in Thailand at the moment is the energy transition. In other words, the transition from dependence on fossil fuels to renewable and sustainable forms of energy. Since the trend is global, Thailand is not able to insulate itself from the policy implications that will result from the energy transition. Globally, in the coming decades, we can expect reduced investment in fossil fuel projects, giving rise to long-term price uncertainty, as well as cheaper renewable energy solutions. Further, measures in other jurisdictions, such as Europe's proposed Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, will put pressure on governments around the world to minimize their carbon footprints of their electricity grids in order to maintain the competitiveness of their industrial sectors. Our recommendations revolve around the government's continued support for the energy transition, as well as this will present a tremendous economic opportunity for Thailand. Our specific recommendations include continuing to expand the deployment of renewable energy with a focus on solar and biomass, as these are technologies where Thailand has a competitive advantage. encouraging energy storage projects to be coupled with renewable electricity generation in the upcoming revisions to the Power Development Plan. Promoting carbon capture, utilization, and storage, or CCUS technologies, especially with biomass power projects, as this can result in negative carbon emissions. Promoting the development of a low carbon hydrogen industry in Thailand, and introducing carbon pricing in order to nudge the private sector towards lower carbon alternatives. Of course, these recommendations only provide a cursory overview of the steps that will be needed to facilitate the energy transition in Thailand. We remain ready to collaborate with the Thai government as we work together to achieve these objectives. Now, I would like to pass the microphone over to Jules Norton-Seltzer to speak about the food and beverages sector.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so there's two really key messages we want to deliver today. One is about the importance of the food, beverage, and agricultural economy to Thailand's recovery. And the second is about how we can support this sector going forward. So just on the importance of the sector, and while I think it's well recognized tourism's centrality to Thailand's GDP, what's perhaps less well recognized is how important food and beverage is to that sector, both within the domestic consumption and also international tourism. As you can see from some of these statistics, food and drink and hospitality is the central attraction in visiting Thailand and other markets, as well as the premiumization trend we see in terms of consumption of food and beverage. And we can also see through that third statistic from an agricultural and food perspective that despite high trade between the EU and Thailand, they both lag both from an import and an export perspective on agri-food. Next slide, please. So what does that mean? As we move to a more value over volume growth strategy, this requires a strategic focus on food and beverage and agriculture, much like it exists for tourism specifically. So recommendations are, number one, a more balanced and consistent policy approach that enhances the growth of hospitality and food and beverage while balancing important kind of health and environmental factors. As we see in many markets globally, there are government-led strategic initiatives, for example, in Tokyo, in Sydney, in London, and New York, with public and private sector partnership that seek to grow this sector over the long term. Number two, fast-tracking the ease of doing business process and reform to both boost tourism attractiveness and revise outdated regulations. So you can see some examples there around the ban on alcohol consumption between 2 and 5 p.m. in tourist areas, foreign participation in the agricultural industry, and the bureaucratic product approval and registration processes and non-tariff barriers. Number three, as well as an FTA over the medium term, considering enhanced trade partnerships to eliminate high tariffs and duties on imported food and beverage goods, which would support business, attract high yield consumers, and create more sustainable revenue for the Thai government. And then lastly, enhancing and upgrading both the agricultural industry to adopt to new technologies, but also building the skill set and capability of the hospitality sector specifically to deliver the new premiumized value over volume tourist experience that people come to now expect. Okay, thank you. And I'll hand over now to Kun Kittima.
Hi. From healthcare and pharmaceutical working groups, the key to success factor to support sustainable economic recovery in new normalcy resilience, including having healthy manpower, competitiveness, enhancement, and investment attractiveness. Thailand can achieve these three factors by having sustainable economic recovery with healthy manpower and sustainable financing, innovation and IP to boost competitiveness and economic growth, digital health as growth factors, opportunity and patient care enhancement, and ease of doing business to attract sustainable investment. Next slide, please. So for sustainable healthcare financing with better management, budget management, We should exploring alternative financing solution, as the minister has already mentioned this morning, and incentivize self-care policy to promote sustainable healthcare financing, patient access, and budget management, as well as we are going to co-creating public-private financial risk-sharing agreement to regulatory sandbox to boost competitiveness and economic growth with innovation and IP ecosystem. We need effective law and enforcement, as well as patent mechanism and regulatory data protection according to international norms to attract investment. And we should utilize innovation lists with criteria expansion to encourage international investment and support Thailand as innovation hub. Digital health, as it can be a growth driver opportunity, we should have enhanced new regulatory framework to facilitate access to new technology and legalize e-pharmacy to increase patient care. Finally, promoting ease of doing business will attract more investment with enhanced regulatory efficiency and continual dialogue on regulatory reform for medical device, considerations of the value and of innovation in pricing and reimbursement with enhanced procedure, level playing fields in government procurement and liberalization of the trade competitions. Thank you. The next speaker is Alonso Minoki from Industry Working Group.
Thank you, Khun Kittiman. The Industry Working Group chapter will give you a number of insights into the role of the industrial sector, which is one of the major engines to drive Thailand's overall economy. We will analyze the main strategic and business-related issues, starting from ease of doing business in the Consolidated Industrial Estate Authority of Thailand, passing through incentives promoted by the government from the Thailand Board of Investment to the Eastern Economic Corridor, which is collecting most of the recent foreign direct investment. We have dedicated an entire section to the Europe-Thailand Free Trade Agreement and its relevance to the manufacturing sectors, in particular in the global scenario between China and the United States, which could favor Thailand due to its geographical positions. Among our recommendations, we have dedicated a paragraph to legislative improvement on business practice and the more necessary use of digitalizations. The important role of engineering in the context of industry and Thailand 4.0 describes how the transformation to Industry 4.0 will replace repetitive and routine jobs with automation and artificial intelligence, while at the same time, new skills will be required and need to be developed to improve supporting the project-based and task-oriented activities. We will see how this triggers the process of upskilling and reskilling in the market and how this should be supported at government level. Finally, a dedicated insight on sustainable supply chains, where we will analyze how essential the role of the industrial sector is today to reduce greenhouse gas emissions toward sustainable industrial developments. Thank you. The next speaker is Jerome Kelly for Insurance Working Group.
Thank you, Alexandro. I'm Jerome Kelly. Good morning, I'm Jerome Kelly, the chair of the Insurance Working Group. The Insurance Working Group was set up to facilitate positive dialogue with the Royal Thai government so that it would be supportive of our industry. In order to attract new investment in the sector, both domestic and foreign, we need the government to liberalise both regulations and controls. At the same time, we'd like it to allow the industry to fully embrace the opportunities offered by modern technology. The industry can contribute to the well-being of our country, provided the balance of participants is synchronized to meet both economic and social needs. Our position paper proposes several areas where advancements of our industry would support development of the Thai economy. For instance, proposals to increase the minimum level of capital required to function as an insurance business in Thailand. Many benefits stem from this. Most importantly, the level of confidence consumers need to ensure that the insurance products they buy today will pay out legitimate claims in the future. The recent COVID pandemic has led to a crisis among a number of Thai insurance companies, as is revealed a shortage of capital and a reluctance to pay legitimate claims arising from COVID infections. Several benefits for insurers follow from higher levels of capital. For example, the ability to withstand major shocks. The floods of 2011, COVID claims of 2021 and 2022 are good examples. Well-capitalized companies attract more skilled employees, principally because they can afford to pay more. This means more skilled personnel who understand consumer needs can develop products to suit those needs. At the same time, skilled actuaries, statisticians, and underwriters can be employed and educated to ensure that lack of understanding of the real risks involved don't lead to the disastrous feeding frenzy, again, the COVID-19 policies have produced, where you have greed overtaken common sense, resulting in erosion of capital and consumer trust. Foreign investors have been permitted into the Thai insurance market, and new ideas and products are slowly starting to appear. Regulatory controls are such they inhibit innovation, especially in the use of new technologies. There is a need for a new approach to product development and product approval. Both this takes time and takes the insurance industry and regulators to work together. And coming back to the increase in capital I mentioned earlier, this will increase skill levels. There's no doubt our industry would benefit from much greater supply of skilled individuals, especially in the areas of underwriting, actuarial, as well as promotion of professional qualifications. While there are plenty of licensing requirements for intermediaries, there are very few requirements for the operational and underwriting skills needed to manage an insurance company. We would recommend that the regulator reviews this area as an opportunity to enhance the reputation of the sector by having highly skilled professional people protecting Thai consumers in all aspects of risk management. Finally, our aim is to support all parties involved in the insurance industry through greater cooperation and increased exchange of ideas. We believe that the EABC can play a major part in improving and promoting the industry. That in turn will benefit all consumers in Thailand. Thank you. Next is the chair of the IPR, Frank Fouché. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Jerome. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, and distinguished guests. As revealed during the COVID-19 pandemic, intellectual property rights, namely patents, trademarks, and copyrights, have proven to remain one of the main factors of economic growth and a resilient asset for private businesses in uncertain times. These assets will be even more important in times of economic recovery. Ensuring that intellectual property rights can be swiftly registered is an essential condition to attract foreign investment and innovation into Thailand. In this regard, the EABC would like to congratulate the Royal Thai government, and in particular the Ministry of Commerce and Thai Department of Intellectual Property, for proposing amendments to the existing intellectual property laws, in particular the Thai Patent Act and the Thai Copyright Act. With regards to the Thai Patent Act and the protection of inventions, the EABC would like to stress the importance of shortening prosecution time of patent application and to continue the policy of recruitment of additional patent examiners and the digitalization process of IP application and registration systems. Indeed, despite a significant reduction in the patent backlog in the past years, current prosecution times for intellectual property rights remains a detrimental factor, both to IP applicants unable to enforce their right while awaiting grant or registration, but also to consumers possibly victims of counterfeit and infringing products. Regarding the current legislative amendments to the Thai Patent Act, the EABC views that current proposed legislation should be better aligned with a true post-grant opposition system existing in the international context, in which the opposition process would occur only after the official grant of the patent application and not before. Regarding intellectual property enforcement, the EABC acknowledged recent efforts made to improving the online enforcement framework. The soon-to-be adopted revised Thai Copyright Act and the recently adopted MOU on cooperation for suppression and prevention of online IPR infringement are positive developments. While the impact of these new tools remain to be assessed and rights of internet service provider needs to be balanced as well, the EABC is confident that overall online enforcement will be facilitated. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic also provided counterfeiters with more opportunities to move their counterfeit products worldwide. Thailand falls victim to these counterfeit products, fake cigarettes, fake alcohol being imported into the country or otherwise passing through in transit or transshipment. The EABC supports any initiative that will provide custom officers with adequate tools to tackle the issue of trademark as well as copyright infringing goods. To conclude, the EABC looks very much forward to working with the Royal Thai government in helping Thailand to endorse the role of IP champion in the ASEAN region and support Thailand economic recovery. I would like to hand over now to Mr. Georg, Chairman of EABC Rail and Road Infrastructure Working Group. Thank you.
Sawadee, and thank you, Frank. Rail and road is, I think, important for all of us. And I'm very glad and I congratulate Thailand for the expansion of the transport infrastructure. We have very huge investments now, and they will contribute a lot for economic revival and also will bring great benefit to the economy in the long term. Our experts are very happy to support Thai efforts in terms of know-how exchange. In our position paper, you find very detailed suggestions for the number one is to accelerate the economic revival with the projects, because in many cases we have a lot of delay, and it would be very good if the government would have a special envoy or a commissioner who is looking what are the stones in the way and how to take them away. Yes. Another thing is very important, this is to ensure the consistent quality. So we suggest to make national approvals for parts of the systems, especially for civil engineering, like it is done in the European countries. And of course, also in this case, we would be happy to help and support. The same is about learning from others to implement the know-how which we delivered. Fortunately, we had an excellent cooperation with the Ministry of Transport, starting when His Excellency Arkhom was Minister of Transport, working together with the German-Thai Railway Association, and we made a lot of seminars and conferences and such things, and also bringing the know-how to all the departments of the Ministry of Transport. The next slide. The next slide. Okay. So one of the most important things from the point of Europe is to reduce the life cycle costs, and this would be in evaluating the total expenses in the tenders and not only the actual investment. And if you consider the costs of operation and maintenance, you would see the leading role of European products and taking away future costs. Then it would be very good if the infrastructural projects could be evaluated by international experienced experts regarding the technology. And then I'm sure that Thailand can become a leader in the Southeast Asia in this field. especially when it is accompanied by liberalization and international corporations. And the last point I wanted to mention is to fight the traffic jam. It would be possible in modernizing the road traffic control with modern things which are available from Europe. So together with Europe, it will work very well, I'm sure. Many thanks for listening, and it's Bob Fox again.
Thank you, Gil. EABC addresses SMEs in each relevant working group. There is no separate SME working group. We include, nevertheless, some central information on SMEs in the position paper via an SME chapter, and we keep up to date with SME issues through our advocacy development updates at each board meeting. About 50% in number of EABC's members are SMEs. This is a small number or percentage if you look at the economy-wide percentages in Europe, which are well over 90% of enterprises are classified as SMEs, and similarly in Thailand. An SME is just like any other company in having to comply with most regulation, but typically it does not have the internal resources necessary. Thus, relaxations and special treatment are needed. What is an SME? In Thailand, we have to look at two sources of regulation. One is a ministerial regulation from 2019, which moved away from fixed assets, and the other one is from OSMEP, the Office of Small to Medium Enterprise Promotion, and these cover MSMEs, of course, micro and small to medium. There's a distinction between manufacturing and service and merchandising. At the very outside, at the high end of medium SMEs, 200 employees and 500 million baht in revenue is the top end. So all of this is relevant to the benefits and regulation. The special role of SMEs in the economy, as we know, shows innovation, focused services, and many other ways of getting into things where larger companies may not be able to do it. Peculiarly, we have to wrestle with the idea of what a foreign SME is, and this bears close examination. A foreign SME can be a local company with more than 49% foreign ownership. And that increased amount of ownership may be because the company is BOI promoted, or it's got a foreign business license, or it's in an area where it doesn't need one. It may be a subsidiary of a larger company, or very typically, it may be a foreign individual, including a number of our members who, residing in Thailand, have been entrepreneurs and they've set it up or brought it and built enterprises that are very valuable to the economy. Access to finance is one of the major issues. DG Grow in the EC well recognizes this and has much learning to be shared. In terms of pandemic support, we initially saw soft loans provided through the retail banking system, whereby the target was not really very well achieved. And then later there was some wage support directly to SMEs for a period. We recommend very strongly recognition of all SMEs, not just local SMEs, in terms of benefits as needed. In effect, a kind of national treatment in trade terms. Thank you. I hand over to Eric Brand, Tourism.
We don't hear you.
Oh, my apologies. Okay. All right. Thank you, Bob. I will highlight only a few of the many challenges tourism is facing right now and recommendations. During the pre-COVID-19, tourism accounted for about 20% of the GDP. Now it is in the low single digits, and it is time to prepare for the post-COVID period. Tourism has many important segments to focus on, such as culinary tourism with Thailand's world-class food and beverage offerings, including many Michelin-rated establishments. wellness and medical tourism, including retirees, of which Thailand was recently voted #1 in this part of the world. Thailand has also a well-preserved, rich cultural heritage. Sports and outdoors adventures do attract high-level international events. General tourism, of course, and business travelers, including the most important MICE segment. It is clear that Thai authorities want to put the accent on quality high-end tourism versus quantity mass tourism for a variety of reasons. The image of Thailand, a higher spending power, and it is very good for the environment. However, we cannot ignore completely the mid and lower tourism segment, given the existing vast infrastructures in place. To achieve these goals, we need to start to reskill and re-energize the tourism sector people with a focus on vocational training. We must also pursue and support green development and initiatives to protect the environment, which is one of the main attractions of the tourism sector. We also need to maintain and further protect a fair competitive environment with relative new tourism actors such as Airbnb and others, which are presently less regulated. Competition is healthy, provided it is on a level playing field. Last but not least, focus more on the general aviation sector by opening up the skies, especially to private plane operators, to support the access of the targeted high-end tourists. This concludes my presentation, and I hand over to Mr. Rederick Hoffman. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. The Transport and Logistics Working Group sees Thailand as the ideal location for an ASEAN or Asian-wide distribution center and network. The geographic position, infrastructure, and workforce makes Thailand the ideal location for such a distribution center. However, to attract more companies to set up their company in Thailand, some of the rules and regulations should be adjusted. With the updated Customs Code of 2017, the government and Thai Customs have done a great effort to improve the conditions for investment. There are still topics to be addressed though, some of which we outlined in the position paper. Overall, the regulations must be clearer and more transparent for all investors, and a reasonable care concept, especially for authorized economic operators, should be introduced. Rules for goods in transit between customs zones of any kind should be rewritten to allow combination of all kinds of goods and easier handling of bonded cargo by trusting the economic operators. Finally, the rewards and penalty system should be eliminated from the Customs Code. That's all for the Transport and Logistics Working Group. I'm handing over back to the Executive Director, Guillaume Ribière. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roderick. Thank you to all the working group representatives. As you can see, the subject matter is very broad, and the issues are covered in more details in the paper. This is just a very short overview of each area. So many thanks to all of you, and now I call to Mr. Jan Eriksen, President of EABC, to deliver the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Guillaume. The information from today is potentially voluminous. The working group have aimed to distill this to essentials today. The position paper has the details. Please join us in our endeavor of that. The position paper reflects 4 broad policy recommendations for Thailand: economic recovery, broader opening, upskill and greener; 2, marketing access and reform; 3, ease of doing business or doing business easy; and 4, not at least, is Thailand EU FTA, which was very well covered by the European Ambassador. Please do join us, become an EABC member, and participate in our working groups and be part of shaping the new area of Thailand EU economic relations. The 22 European business position paper will be a structured, searchable format available for download next week from our website. A special thanks to their excellencies, to our partners and sponsors, working group members, EABC office, who have worked on this position paper, and the many people in the EABC community, including members, embassies and chambers, and all of you who have participated today. I'm sorry that we have drawn over the time, but I think and hope that we have conveyed a very good message in what we have presented today. And I would again reiterate and invite you all to look at the more details in the position paper in itself when it's uploaded on our website. As it's searchable and so on, you can go to the sectors where you have an interest and find very detailed information in regards to what we have presented today. So thank you very much and have a good day.